What are we actually talking about in this bill? We're talking about, for one thing, federal money to subsidize childcare so that people can go to work. Parents who want to work, who want to enter the workforce, but don't have childcare to do it. We're talking about elder care, again, which would allow more people to go to work if they so choose. We're talking about dental care for seniors. Now, maybe you think, I don't know, an 80-year-old person who needs dental care should get a second job to afford it, and that if we give them free dental care, they will be too entitled. But I personally am not super worried about the seniors of America getting really lazy because someone's checking their teeth. No one should lose sight of the fact that above and beyond the substance of its provisions, this bill, this Build Back Better bill, is popular. It's polling very well. Now, it is easy to get lost in the process. Lord knows I have at times. The fundamental dynamics here haven't changed. The overwhelming majority of Democrats in Congress, in both houses, support the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better bill. 95% of the Democratic caucus across all kinds of geographical areas, both moderate and progressive, people in very, very, very safe seats, and people in what's called frontline seats, right? People that are in swing seats that are going to have to defend next year. There's an amazing degree of consensus on this legislation, which, again, embodies the agenda that Joe Biden ran on. Like, if you printed out his website during the campaign, this is it. That this is what Democrats are bringing before the country after they won the election. The problem continues to be that there are these very notable holdouts, and Democrats need 100% consensus to get the bill passed. So you probably know who these holdouts are. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. She's not said a ton about her position, although she did issue a statement today saying, in part, quote, Senator Sinema said publicly more than 2 months ago, before the Senate passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, she would not support a bill costing $3.5 trillion. And, of course, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. He's been far more vocal about the fact he's not on board and been more specific to his credit. Today, there was this leak of a document that Manchin signed in July saying he would only agree to a spending bill capped at $1.5 trillion instead of the $3.5 trillion bill that President Biden wants. And then Manchin came out with a statement yesterday blasting the Build Back Better bill, saying it was designed to, quote, vengefully tax for the sake of wishful spending. And that's because most of the bill would be paid for, just to be clear, it's not a huge increase to the deficit, with tax increases on big corporations and the very wealthy. Today, Manchin told reporters he, quote, cannot accept our economy, or basically our society, moving towards an entitlement mentality, while making clear where he sees himself in the party.
I have voted pretty consistently all my whole life. I don't fault any of them who believe that they're much more progressive and much more liberal. God bless them. And all they need to do is we have to elect more, I guess, for them to get theirs, elect more liberals.
Now, I kind of agree with Joe Manchin there. He is not, nor he's ever been a liberal. No one would confuse him. And if there were more liberals in the Senate, we wouldn't be here. But whether you're liberal or not is not really the issue. The question is the legislation good or not, and whether Manchin is right about its critiques. And I think he's wrong. Now, Joe Manchin is someone I hope is subject to persuasion, so it's worth highlighting how his substantive and political critiques are wrong. First of all, you got to take issue with the description of taxes on the richest Americans and corporations as, quote, vengeful. Can't really speak for the emotional states of the people who wrote the legislation, but you tax the rich for the same reason that John Dillinger robbed the banks. That's where the money is. Look at this chart. It shows America's revenue from corporate income tax as a percentage of GDP over time. It is essentially at an all-time low, right around 1%. For context, the U.S. collects fewer revenues from corporations than any other country in the G7. There we are all the way on the right, nearly a whole percentage point behind Germany and Italy. Corporations are more profitable than they've ever been. They are paying the lowest taxes ever thanks to Trump's tax cuts, which, by the way, Joe Manchin, to his credit, voted against. In fact, you'd think if he was against lowering the corporate tax rate before, he should be for raising it back up to where it was. That's not even what's being proposed, to be clear. If you think corporations have a good thing going, wait till you hear about the very richest people. You know, we got this incredible reporting this year by ProPublica just over the summer that shows in some cases the very richest people on earth are literally paying no taxes, no income taxes, none. In 2011, a year in which his wealth held roughly steady at $18 billion, Amazon founder and chairman Jeff Bezos filed a tax report tax return reporting he'd lost income. His income that year was more than offset by investment losses. What's more, because according to the tax law, he made so little, he even claimed and received, I love this, a $4,000 tax credit for his children. Well, thank goodness that tax credit was there for Jeff Bezos. He was worth $18 billion at the time, and he qualified for a child tax credit. The richest people are paying next to nothing in income taxes, and it has nothing to do with vengeance. Again, it's literally where the money is to tax. Manchin's other buzzworthy phrase in his statement is about, quote, entitlement mentality. What are we actually talking about in this bill? We're talking about, for one thing, federal money to subsidize childcare so that people can go to work. Parents who want to work, who want to enter the workforce, but don't have childcare to do it. We're talking about elder care, again, which would allow more people to go to work if they so choose. We're talking about dental care for seniors. Now, maybe you think, I don't know, an 80-year-old person who needs dental care should get a second job to afford it, and that if we give them free dental care, they will be too entitled. But I personally am not super worried about the seniors of America getting really lazy because someone's checking their teeth. No one should lose sight of the fact that above and beyond the substance of its provisions, this bill, this Build Back Better bill, is popular. It's polling very well. People seem to like the whole vengeful taxation part, too, including in Joe Manchin's own state. The Charleston Gazette-Mail reports a poll of 600 registered West Virginia voters found 48% support Biden's reconciliation plan. Now, keep in mind, that's pretty good in a state that Joe Biden lost by nearly 40 points. And then again, after we polled voters, we're given the option of raising taxes on the richest Americans and corporations while closing the loopholes that have caused significant wealth disparities. Support for the plan rose as high as 70%. Look, sometimes legislation is good legislation and it's not that popular or it's going to have a big backlash. I think that was probably true of Waxman-Markey, for instance, or it was true to a certain extent about the ACA. I've covered and written about legislation moving through Congress for over a decade. And there are sometimes really hard votes where you vote for it's the right thing, but you're going to get a lot of backlash. And this vote, this bill, partly due to some real pragmatic cleverness, I think, in the Democratic Party and how they designed it, this one shouldn't be like that. This shouldn't be a hard vote. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema need to realize that.
Congressman Porter, do you know if the Speaker is going to bring this to a vote and let it fail, as speakers in the past have sometimes had to do in order to make the point about where we really are?
I don't think Speaker Pelosi will bring the bill to the floor because I think we already do know where we are, which is exactly what Congressman Khanna said. I think there are dozens and dozens and dozens of colleagues who are going to vote no if needed, because we have to deliver the entirety of the president's agenda. I think sometimes people think that there's, we have some secret information. We have information that they don't have. I just want to show people this is what we received today for what's going to be voting tomorrow. Question mark. First votes, question mark. Last votes, question mark. So we don't know exactly the sequence of what we're going to do tomorrow, but we do know what the outcome will be until Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin are able to come up with what they want to do for their constituents, to do for the American people. Until Senator Sinema stops being cute and starts doing her job and leading for the people of Arizona, we're simply not going to be able to move the president's agenda forward.
Well, we know strategically what Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin are doing, one more professionally, at least on the exterior, than the other. And that is that they are trying to delay any possible action on the reconciliation bill so that the bill that they worked on, the bipartisan Senate infrastructure bill, will pass. And then they will have unlimited time to object to what's in the reconciliation bill and possibly never vote for it.
Well, and I think that's really irresponsible to their constituents and to the people of this country. Infrastructure is incredibly important. It will create good-paying jobs, and it's an important part of an economy. But I wasn't elected just to represent one industry or just to elect one kind of worker. I was elected to create a strong and stable and globally competitive economy. And to do that, for example, we have to see women be able to re-enter the workforce. We have to address the crisis in elder care. We have to make sure that workers are healthy and able to to go to their workplaces. And so I think this idea that, it's infrastructure and nothing else would be okay, if that's really what Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin believe, they owe it to the American people to say that.
Let's listen to what Senator Bernie Sanders said about the situation.
What you got now are 48 out of 50 members who are prepared to support this legislation. You got 95% of the House Democrats prepared to support this legislation. It's not like, okay, let's reach a middle ground. We have the overwhelming votes. We have the President of the United States wants it, and the American people want it. So I would hope, to answer your point, that after months, not weeks, of discussion, we can in fact go someplace and pass what the American people want.
Senator Sanders has been a completely practical legislator on this all the way through. He's had the responsibility of Budget Committee chairman to get the budget resolution done on this, which Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema, they both voted for. The $3.5 trillion budget resolution that is now being reconciled, and the other half of that process.
No, that's exactly right. They supported that budget resolution, and now we're simply doing the work in the House. We've had markups, we've debated, we've made amendments to this legislation, we've put it together into a package in the budget, and now we are expecting them to engage back in good faith. If they have concerns, if they have problems, tell us what they are. But we simply can't negotiate away from, with ourselves and away from what the American people want if there are no meaningful competing concerns. And I was elected to represent the people of Orange County and to fight for families, to stand up to corporate interests. I was not elected to read the mind of Kyrsten Sinema. Thank goodness, because I have no idea what she's thinking.
Well, you're in similar situations, right? Because she won a Senate seat that was previously held by a Republican. You won a seat in the House previously held by a Republican. Do you recognize anything in the way she appears to be handling this that is based on the fact that she flipped a seat and has a concern about being able to appeal to Republican voters, as you do too in Orange County?
I have to be honest, I really don't, because the way that I find it easiest and best and most honest to connect with constituents who might have different values or different opinions than I do is to be incredibly accountable, to be as transparent and forthright and honest with them as I can be. And so I think it's likely that all of us, no matter what district we represent, have some constituents who disagree with us. But I think the way you overcome that is you listen to your constituents' concerns, you tell them where you stand, you explain, you answer their questions, and then you go forth and do exactly what you told them you were going to do. She's simply not answering to the American people. And I think that should be a concern for people regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum.